saying that the structure of the business can add value or detract value from the overall sale. And I imagine once the business owner has kind of nailed down the structure, they've
Yeah.
figured that out and it's positioned in a way that makes it more attractive for sale. What other levers can they pull from a value driving standpoint? Again, that 3 to 5 years out, they don't have all the time in the world, but they do have a little bit of time to increase the value of their business and hopefully sell at a higher multiple. Because that's probably what they want at the end of the day. So what other value drivers do they have in there?
I'll point to Ben on this, but strong financials. And I don't mean
Yeah.
you have to be super profitable. I mean, your books need to be in order. And I
Okay.
think you think about someone who is going to come into your business, who you're going to sell to, however you want to look at it. Why would they give you X amount of dollars? They could take that amount and stick it in a portfolio of stocks, or or they could start their own business. Why would they give that to you? And the answer is they expect a good return. They
Right.
expect some return on their money. The only way they can gauge that is if you have your financial numbers in order and they make sense and they're clean. I'm sure, I know for a fact that Ben sees a lot of stuff that comes in and it's not like that. It's disorganized. It doesn't make sense. And you have some of that can take years to kind of clean up and get in order so that you're ready to start handing that to a third party or whoever's going to be purchasing your business. So definitely having good financial books.
And, there's a good process to that. Once you have your sale consultant or accountant or whoever it is that's taking a look at it, compare your company to some really good, there's a lot of data out there that benchmarks, right? And gives you some idea of where your expenses should be versus your incomes. And you can pull data on other companies sold in your industry, what multiples they hit, and what's different about their company than my company. It's a paid service that there's specialty people that's what they do. If you're serious and you have a company of good size and it's worth the cost, then you may be able to dramatically improve your value by just cleaning up some overspending in certain categories of your business. Sometimes that can be a difficult thing to do, but in a simpler state than getting heavily into the research. If you've been running the business for years and years and years, you probably know where you're spending extra money in some different categories, right? And you need to retain your staff, and you need to keep everybody happy for you to have a good business to sell. But if you have areas where you just overspend, because it's enjoyable for the business, or it's helps your community presence but doesn't really increase your value. I'm not saying to stop doing your charitable giving, but maybe you over advertise and stuff like that because you like being seen in the community some more. There may be some stuff that you can just kind of trim back and increase your earnings and make your business more attractive. So you want to kind of start when you lead up to sale. You might get rid of some of the bells and whistles that you've enjoyed as an owner of a business for years and years, but you need to clean that stuff up so you have a clean, simple, profitable set of books.
There's a lot. Go ahead. You have a question because I could go off on a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the flip side of that too. So there's the one reducing your spending. So your numbers are legitimately good. And then there's the other, and maybe you just need more time to do this. I'm not sure. But the other idea is to get more intentional about your spending. So you're getting a better return on that spending. I've heard examples of business owners who actually could benefit from ramping up their spending. So they're creating a more profitable, at the end of the day, more profitable engine. So it's.
Yeah. There's industries, and again, every scenario is unique, but there's industries that their revenue source is recurring. Right. So, insurance, for example, is a good one. Financial advisory is a good one. A large spend on a large campaign that brings in additional revenue that is recurring revenue. It may have 1 year of poor earnings because of a big spend, but if the revenue is recurring, you don't have the spend afterwards, then you'll have a much larger margin in years 2, 3, and 4. Right. So yeah, that every industry is different. You have to look carefully at it. Some it's not recurring revenue. So a big marketing push might give you a good year. And then if you're stuck in a contract, like it may not continue to bear
Sure.
fruit, right? So every industry is different. You need to have that person in your corner that understands your industry, and they'll make those kind of suggestions to you.
If I could add, every industry is different, every business is different, like Ben said. So really give thought to what your business is, the size of that business, and who you can realistically see purchasing that business. Right. So who's the next me at my business? That's what you kind of have to think. It might be internal. It might be an outside partner or person. It could be like a private equity, and it could be a competitor down the street.
Hmm.
It could be other things, but really give some thought. And in a perfect world, it could be many of those things, and you're not sure. So I think you really need to run your bit. We all take we have a little bit more casual, as Ben said, when you're building the business, right? But once you get to a certain point, if it's saleable, like it's a tangible thing that you could step out of, it's probably to the point where when you're cleaning it up, make it run so that the next person can just get in and turn the engine on and keep it going. And so you need to make it so, you're sort of replaceable. Not sort of, you need to be replaceable,
Yeah.
but make sure that you're catering it to the right size that it is. Like you can listen to podcasts like this and say, "Oh, that was great advice. I'm gonna do that." Well, you're not really selling to that. A great example would be like HVAC companies, right? Uh, 10 years ago, you wouldn't necessarily have thought that they'd be valued where they are today. But if you're, to your point, if I'm a buyer, I don't want to buy a company that has recurring revenue, but all of their customers, the growth in the last year or two has been just off the charts bad,
Hmm.
not in a good way. And why is that? They're not advertising, they're not trying to find a new business. Their equipment and their processes are horrible, and their equipment's horrible. Each of those things plays a factor. It can add value or it can decrease. And if you're not spending and all that stuff just to get your bottom line up so you look profitable,
Right.
most of the people buying, whether it's them or the people lending them the money to give you a big check, are smart people. And they're going to look at those books and go, your numbers are great this year, but there's no way it's going to continue. I'm going to give you 60% of what you think you're worth. And you're going to get mad. And then the next guy is going to say the same thing. And then now you're really upset that you wasted that time. And so you could take that money and reinvest it in sales or advertising and show a growing business. And now instead of your multiple being 3x, it's 5x. And so you spend a little bit of money, but 2 years later, your business is still growing, and now it's at a higher valuation. Maybe your profit margin is a little bit lower, but your ultimate value is higher. That's just an example.
Yeah.
It may or
Yeah.
may not play out that. That's where you kind of really look at it and say, what's going on in this business and who are you appealing to?
And you had an excellent point at the start of that.
The rest was garbage. Is that
It's-
what you, I think that's what he just said.
Pretty much. No.
More or less. No.
Nice.
Continuity after the sale
Yes.
to a buyer
Yes.
is huge. So making the goal in that 3 to 5 years out to develop your management team underneath you to be able to run your company without you seems weird to say that makes your company more valuable to make yourself irrelevant, but you don't want to be irrelevant. Like, you matter. You're the owner. You started this thing. But if the only way the business survives after the sale is if you're still the managing high paid executive afterwards, then that comes right off your sales multiple, because they have to pay your purchase price and they have to pay your salary. So unless you're going to work for free, it has to come from somewhere. And generally it comes off your purchase price. It's not just your annual salary. What you're looking at is cash flow, and what debt service can that cash flow afford. And if you need a 6-figure salary to be a full-time manager of your business, a 6-figure salary is a lot of debt service that could be adding to the value of your company. So
Mhm.
that was a good point, and something that is a difficult thing with small shops, especially, that don't have a big staff, but it's an important thing to let some people in to know what to do if you're not around. Not just for sale, that's just in general, right? The
Mhm.
business has to have a continuity plan.
There's a lot to consider. And then you also brought up in the beginning, Bob, it's not just the sale, but then there's there's life after the sale,
Mhm.
hopefully. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we're hoping for. So, how should business owners be thinking about replacing their income after they exit? And what does that planning look like?
In a lot of exit planning in that process, there, we refer to it as a three-legged stool. There's the business side, there's the financial side, and then there's the personal side. So the business is everything we've just been talking about. Everything that goes on inside your business and making it efficient and extracting the most you can at the eventual exit. The financial is all the numbers that flow off of that business, plus all your personal stuff that you and your spouse maybe have saved up in different accounts. Those I think are the easy parts because they're basically math and some good business sense and working with your CPA and everything. The part that the third leg of that stool that people drastically neglect, and I alluded to this earlier, is the personal side. What will I do in retirement? We're very good at taking your assets and taking and trying to do tax efficiency and investment, being prudent with it, getting diversification, and creating an income stream from that, whatever's left from the business. What are you doing every single day? Where are you going? Who are you with? Those are things that people neglect, and they pick their head up after that storm has passed, and they're like, "Now what do I do?" And I really, really think that people have a much smoother ride if they pay attention to that first. It's hard to convince them of that though, because they're so damn busy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just period. They're
Yeah.
busy running the business, and then when they're not, they're finally getting a week or a couple days with the family. Kids are graduating college, and life is happening around them.
Working on that piece is going to partially determine what the picture looks like of what you need to get from a sale or whatever
Exactly.
to
That's a good
be
point.
able to afford to do what you want to do. If you haven't thought about it and you haven't talked to your wife to find out she really wants a house in Palm Beach, you know, you might not be ready for a sale yet this year, right? And you may need to stick it out one or two more so you can afford the lifestyle you want to have after the sale, right?
Right.
If the grandkids are in Colorado and Texas and you're going to need 6 sets of plane tickets every year, it's take a look at what you really think you'll do. Like Bob said, what are your hobbies and passions? Are you going to travel for it? You can spend some time and kind of figure out what that stuff costs. Your advisors will help you look at it and build somewhat of a budget. And with a
Yeah.
budget, you can say, here's what that budget costs for 20 years
Hmm.
and see if you're ready and if your
Hmm.
business is ready to fund that for you.
Even more reason to become irrelevant in your business. So you have a little think time
Yeah,
Yeah.
to
maybe you can get
imagine
irrelevant
what,
enough you can do some of those things and know what they
right,
cost before you retire.
right. What am I going to do? How can I
Yeah.
practice retirement like we've talked about before?
I'm going to say something that seems weird, but I think
Okay.
I'm kind of known for
I'm
that.
used to that. Go
Um,
ahead.
here's something that I hope would make people feel a little, it will lower the stress volume in their life. I think the anxiety. In order to really exit a business in the best way, you're taking this thing that has all these moving parts that you've built, and you're ultimately making it a machine that runs on its own. I mean, there's people involved, but you hopefully have built processes and all those things in place through your years that that it generates X amount of income. And what you're doing is, let's say you're taking, just for round numbers, say it's $1 million, and you're taking $100,000 a year in income off of that business, but you want to step away. You don't want to run it anymore. Okay. So maybe you could take some of that money and direct it and hire somebody. If over time you're building it with people that can do what you do so that you can step away, and then there's still profit left after you pay those people, whoever buys it from you wants that profit stream, right? And so you've created a company just like you would see like Procter and Gamble, right? That it's worth a stock, a value per share, and I invest in that share and it pays a dividend, and then I hope it grows over time. If you've done your work correctly with your business, you've created the same thing. It's not called Procter and Gamble or Apple, it's whatever your business is. If it's working like that and you haven't figured exactly how to sell it or when to sell it, it's not a crime to keep it. If it's working well, there is some risk because it's probably a very small business relative to the others. Now, so there's still some risk, but perhaps you could help somebody internally buy into it. Like, hey, buy 10% from me each year for the next 5 years. Then you've sold half of it. And it's still a great business. But the question is, when you get that money out of your business, what are you going to put it in? You're going to put it in somewhere that's hopefully earning 5, 8, 10, 12%. Well, if you're getting that off your own business already, or some cases more than that, it's not like this impending thing that has to happen by the end of this year. And that's,
Yeah.
sometimes it is. There are some circumstances, but it's usually not a big deal if you take your time and go through this process.
Mm.
Instead of setting, some people set these unrealistic time frames,
Yeah.
and I think that causes anxiety, and then they sell way too low, or they get an expectation of it's going to be here. And private equity has made everything frothy right now in certain industries. And by the time you sell, that might not be there anymore. And would it be a crime if your business is really still producing a wonderful thing and you've made yourself sort of replaceable? I don't have to be there every day. I think there's something to be said where you can hold on to the business. I don't know, maybe you don't agree with me.
No, no, there's absolutely circumstances where that's the case, where you can, enjoy a salary and maybe, some of the benefits and health insurance and all that kind of stuff, keep it reasonable, and then and have some leftover profits after that. And you look at what that produces annually and you say, just like Bob said, somebody would give me $1 million, but I'll make that in 6 years
Yeah.
without all the stress. And I have a good team and I'm not working too hard. And if that's your position, then yeah, maybe you do just hang on to it.
And keep in mind, a lot of times those entrepreneurial people they're just wired that way. And until
Mhm.
their body no longer or their mind no longer lets them work, they're going to work. And
Yep.
so you could sell your business at 55 and get millions of dollars, right? What's probably going to happen is you have that money invested, and after a while, you'll be like, I'm going to go start this business.
Oh, yeah.
Or my buddy just asked me to go get it, go halvies on it. And that's fine. And we try to provide that flexibility. But as some people, it's just in your DNA.
Some people are pulling the trigger on the sale of the business as part of a estate planning,
That's
really,
true.
and
Yeah.
trying to just clean up their estate.
Mm.
And in some instances that might make sense. In some instances where you have, I won't call it passive income, because if you own it, you're still working to some extent. In some instances, just hanging on to it, and maybe there's I don't want to be morbid, but if you pass and you still have it, and there's a stepped up basis, then if you've made that plan and made that team that can run it without you, and you do happen to pass away, your children would get a stepped up basis, and they can work something out and sell the thing basically tax free at that point in some instances. So
Hmm.
there's not always a rush. There's not always a need. And whether it's, estate planning or just cash flow planning, maybe it's just a hard industry to sell in.
Mhm.
You don't always have to force it.
Although I don't think Ben is recommending death to avoid taxes.
Yeah, definitely not. I think across the board, lots of different situations, scenarios, industries, types of businesses, structures. There's so much at play here. So I'm curious for the business owner listening who they really haven't fully started exit planning yet. And they see that mountain kind of being built in front of them as they listen more and more. What's the very first step or conversation that they should have to get the ball rolling? They don't have to climb the mountain today, but where do they start? What's that first step that they need to take?
The first step starts today.
Mhm.
I think I've said that in the past. The
Yeah.
best day to do planning is today.
Mhm.
The first action doesn't have to be a monumental action. I would say my thought would be, have a conversation with whoever's closest to your business
Mhm.
and say, hey, this is something. It might be a partner in your business, might be your spouse, might be an accountant, might be a financial guy. But talk to them and say, I've been thinking about this, and I think it's time that I start planning and moving ahead and start to get a plan. And that person might not be the one to start leading you. We do this all the time. We can do it. If you have somebody in your life already, talk to him or her. But that's probably, I think, once you start talking to somebody, it's out of your head and
Yeah.
out there, there's a chance for it to get in motion.
Absolutely. It's first place to start some conversations.
Yep.
Definitely.
Mhm.
It's a good way to put it. Whoever you trust the most. I mean, they're all going to have some input on it at some point in the process. So if you get really serious about it, the best thing is to get them all in a room.
Yeah.
If you have multiple advisors, right? I mean, your attorney's going to have a lot of work to do. Accountant's going to have a lot of work to do, and that'll, determine advisors' plans and all that kind of stuff. So yes, just start with a mindset change that you're going to try to clean it up, and then have some conversations with some of your professionals and let them help you make a plan.
And listen to Blue Collar Wealth podcasts like this.
Oh, yes.
They can call
Yeah.
us. We'd love to have these conversations. Hi, it's Bob Brown, co-host of this podcast and partner and certified exit planning advisor at Stonehouse. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been quietly thinking about stepping away from your business? Maybe not this year, but sometime soon. If so, you're not alone. And good news, you're not behind. At Stonehouse, we work with business owners who are in exactly that place, wondering what the next chapter looks like, how to prepare for a sale or a transition, and how to start building a financial future that's just as organized and intentional as the business you built. We understand the hesitation, the emotion, the complexity, because it's not just about the numbers. It's about identity. It's about timing, taxes, legacy, and what comes after that. The first step is just a conversation. No pressure, no pitch. Go to stonehouseinv.com/exit to request a confidential meeting with one of our advisors. We'll meet you right where you are and help you start building a plan that supports your goals and feels right.